The morning of my son's wedding began the way most important days do, too early, too quiet, and filled with small details that felt more significant than they probably were. The house smelled like fresh coffee and pressed linen. Someone had already delivered the flowers. White arrangements sat on the kitchen counter, waiting to be transported to the venue. I remember standing by the window holding my mug, looking out at the driveway. My son was getting married in 4 hours. There should have been only pride in that moment. Pride, and maybe the usual anxiety a parent feels when a chapter closes. Instead, there was a thin thread of unease I couldn't quite place. He had been distant the past few weeks. Not cold exactly, just careful, like someone rehearsing their words before speaking them. I told myself it was normal. Weddings make people strange. The doorbell rang. When I opened it, I found Arun standing there, the family driver who had worked with us for nearly 20 years. He still wore the same quiet expression he always had, hands folded politely in front of him. "Ma'am," he said, "I need you to come with me." His voice was low but urgent. "Now?" I asked. "Wes!" I almost laughed. "Arun, the wedding is this morning." "I know." Something in the way he said it stopped me. It wasn't panic. Arun was not a man who panicked. In 2 decades I had never seen him raise his voice or hurry his movements. But this morning there was tension in his posture. "Is something wrong?" I asked. He glanced past me into the house, as if making sure we were alone. Then he said quietly, "Please come with me. It's important." I followed him outside. The car was already running. I expected him to open the passenger door. Instead, he walked to the back of the car and lifted the trunk. For a moment, I thought he was joking. He wasn't. He said quickly, "Please get in." I stared at him. "What the hell are you doing?" He grabbed a folded blanket from inside the trunk and placed it gently across the edge. "Please," he said again. "Arun, this is ridiculous." His voice dropped even lower. "You need to see something." "What?" He hesitated. "If I explain now," he said, "you won't believe me." The statement hung between us. I felt irritation rising in my chest. "Then try." He shook his head. "Please trust me." I should have refused. Every logical part of my brain said this situation made no sense. But Arun had driven our family through funerals, graduations, hospital visits, ordinary school mornings. He had been present for 2 decades of our lives without ever inserting himself into them. If he was asking for trust now, it meant something had pushed him far outside his comfort. 5 minutes, I said. He nodded immediately. I climbed into the trunk. It was awkward and undignified. The blanket smelled faintly of detergent. When he closed the lid, a thin line of daylight remained near the latch. The car started moving. At first I was simply angry. I lay there stiffly, feeling every turn in the road. Gravel beneath the tires, a long stretch of pavement. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Messages from relatives asking about directions to the venue. I ignored them. The car slowed. Then stopped. The engine remained running. For a moment nothing happened. I shifted slightly and looked through the narrow crack near the latch. We were parked near the back entrance of the wedding venue. The service entrance. A few minutes passed. Then 2 figures walked into view. My son. And his uncle, my older brother. They stopped near the side of the building, where the catering trucks had been unloading earlier that morning. I couldn't hear every word. But the tone of the conversation was clear. My brother was speaking firmly. Quietly, but firmly. My son stood with his shoulders tight, his hands shoved into his pockets. "Too late to back out now," my brother was saying. "I'm not backing out," my son replied. "Then stop acting like something is wrong." A pause. My son looked down at the pavement. "I just want to talk to her first." "About what?" Another pause. "Everything." My brother sighed heavily. "Listen," he said. "This marriage is good for everyone. The families are aligned, the businesses will work together, and you've been together long enough. That's not the point." "What is the point?" My son's voice dropped lower. "I'm not sure she actually wants this." The words landed strangely. My brother laughed softly. Of course she does. Weddings make people nervous. That's not what I mean. Silence stretched between them. Then my brother said something that made my chest tighten. You're overthinking it, because your mother has always filled your head with ideas about independence and feelings. The sentence sat in the air. Sometimes, he continued, you have to do what's practical. My son didn't respond immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded tired. I just want to talk to her without everyone around. You will, my brother said. After the ceremony. That's not the same. My brother's tone sharpened slightly. Don't create problems today. The conversation ended shortly after that. My brother walked toward the main entrance. My son remained standing alone near the wall for several seconds. He looked smaller than I remembered, not physically. Emotionally. Like someone carrying a decision that didn't quite belong to him. Then he walked away. The trunk opened, daylight flooded in. Arun stood there, his expression carefully neutral. I sat up slowly. The air outside felt colder than before. You heard enough? He asked quietly. I stepped out of the trunk. For a moment I couldn't speak. Why did you show me that? I finally asked. Arun closed the trunk gently. Because if I told you, he said, it would become an argument. And arguments in families turn into denial. He looked toward the venue. I thought it would be better if you saw it. I leaned against the car. Memories began sliding into place in my mind, small comments over the years. My brother insisting certain partnerships were good for the family. The way decisions seemed to accelerate once business discussions began. Things I had dismissed as normal family influence, but influence can quietly become pressure. Does she know? I asked. Arun nodded slightly. She seemed unsure last week when I drove them to dinner. Why didn't anyone tell me? He hesitated. Because everyone assumes you will support the wedding. The statement stung more than I expected. Maybe they were right. Maybe I had spent years protecting the image of harmony in our family. Even when something felt slightly off, we drove back to the main entrance. Guests were arriving. Music floated through the open doors. Everything looked perfectly ordinary. Inside the venue, people moved around arranging chairs and flowers. My son stood near the altar speaking with the officiant. When he saw me, his expression flickered, relief, then concern. Mom, he said walking over, where were you? I looked at him for a long moment, getting some perspective. He frowned slightly. What does that mean? I lowered my voice. Have you spoken to her today? He hesitated. No. Do you want to? His eyes searched my face. Yes. The honesty in that answer settled something inside me. I took out my phone. There are moments when families expect silence. Moments when protecting appearances feels easier than confronting uncomfortable truths. But silence has a cost. I stepped away from the crowd and made a call. Within 15 minutes the venue manager approached us with a serious expression. He spoke quietly with the officiant. Then he addressed the gathering guests. There will be a short delay before the ceremony begins. Murmurs spread through the room. My brother walked toward me, irritation already forming in his expression. What's going on? I met his eyes. Something that should have happened earlier. I said. My son and his fiancée were escorted into a private room with the officiant and a counselor from the venue's coordination team. The door closed behind them. Guests whispered among themselves. My brother stood beside me, clearly unhappy. You've made this unnecessarily complicated, he said. I didn't respond. Through the hallway window I could see the parking lot, the same quiet place where I had watched the conversation earlier. After nearly an hour the door to the private room opened. My son stepped out first. His expression was calmer than it had been all morning. Not joyful, but clear. He walked toward me slowly. Thank you, he said. For what? For giving us time. Behind him the conversation inside the room continued. No one knew yet whether the ceremony would go forward that day. The future of the wedding remained uncertain. Guests waited quietly. Some uncomfortable, some curious. But for the first time that morning, my son looked like someone making a decision rather than carrying one. And sometimes that difference, small as it seems, is the most honest beginning a family can offer.